the agenda real quick. So I'm going to start things off today talking about a general kind of a business update on OpenPoint. And then we're going to actually do something different. So we're going to actually have Joel Duchateau from Sun Prairie. He's going to give a presentation on what I'm kind of calling real world OMS. So basically OMS, they've been using there for a while now, and his perspective and give you some real world examples and things of how it's being used. And we'll be definitely opening that up for questions after his discussion. So if you want to ask someone who's actually using our OMS tools, what the experiences have been, this will be a great opportunity to do that. So after that, Mindy is going to go in and actually do a demonstration. Actually, not a demonstration, more of a discussion about some of the new capabilities and some of the more advanced capabilities, things that add more automation. You know, we're trying to keep OMS as practical and simple as we possibly can, but there are some really cool things that we can do, more so in the last year, but even some things before that that we have done that will give you an idea of some of the power of it and how it can actually save you time and make things more efficient. So after that, then I'll be doing the next 3 demos. So I'll be actually showing some tools such as our field inventory tool set, and I'll kind of talk a little bit more about what you can do with it, and just kind of conceptually, and then also to jump into an actual demo where I'll actually use an iPad, and I'll show some real world things that you could do out in the field. And then we have our field activities module. So that's another brand new thing that we have done in the last year. And that includes things like being able to do hydrant flushing and valve turning and pole inspections, things like that are all based out in the field using iPads and doing work in conjunction there. And so after that, I'm going to do another demo, which is going to be water service locations. And I'll explain what that is. You probably don't know what a water service location is exactly. It's a kind of a new phrase that we're using to describe this concept. But I'll do a full demo on that, and so we'll have some map components there, we'll have some web components there, so you'll kind of get an idea on that. And then Mindy is going to do a talk on map and cloud enablement capabilities, and so she'll kind of go into a little bit more on, really this is all pretty new stuff for us, so more about how data that previously lived just in the map can now live in the cloud. And then what can you do with that? So what kind of things does that actually enable for you now that we have that capability? Then we'll go over to Jill, and she's going to do some different new features in OpenPoint Web, and also some different tips that are things that have been there, but you may find useful, things that we thought would be worth bringing to your attention. And then she's going to go into a discussion on our standard labor hours project, which I'll let her describe what that is. And I know a number of you have already been working with her on this, but I'm very excited about that because it's a really good example of where we brought our utility clients together. We took advantage of our community and we created something that's useful to everybody. And so it's a really nice kind of end result that we think has a lot of value. And as we're talking to new Wisconsin utilities about some of our capabilities, this is another example to say, hey, here's something that came from the community, and you'll probably find that to be useful too, to be able to save you some time. So I'll let her kind of go over that in more detail, but again, I'm pretty excited about that. And then she'll talk a little bit more about the Civic integration work that we're doing. So I know a number of you are moving from Dynamics to Civic. At least some of you already made the change, or you've made the decision to make the change, and others are still thinking about that. And so we've been making some progress on the integration with the Civic tool set, and she'll talk about that. And then the last session is going to be on brainstorming some different topics. Not sure if we're going to have time for that at this point. So because we're going to, if the interaction part of it, the question part goes a little bit long, then we might not have much time for that portion. If that does happen, then we'll probably schedule some follow-on sessions to talk about some of these things. And so, but we'll kind of get to that point when we do, and hopefully we'll have at least a little bit of time to talk about some of those things. All right, so that's kind of my opening talk there, and I'm going to jump right into our business update. And so, so probably the most important thing to talk about is really what our new utilities are and what some of the existing ones have been doing. So we have 2 brand new utilities since last year, and that is Columbus and Hartford. And so Columbus is doing their electric system, and they are doing a field inventory, so a full field inventory. They're actually using that field inventory tool set that I'll be showing you a little bit later. And that's still a work in progress. They're hoping to get done with that this year, and then they'll be on the system fully integrated on the map and the web side of things as well. And with Hartford, they're doing electric and water. So they're being converted from another GIS software package. And so we've already done that conversion work. And they're close to having the electric system up and running fully as far as the full integration with the property records. And the water we're getting certain elements going this year. Some of that I'm actually going to be showing today. And then also probably the final water system for them will happen sometime next year. There's a little bit of work that we need to do in advance that wasn't anticipated, so we'll be getting that all squared away. Probably, hopefully not too far into next year for those guys. So, and then another key one to talk about is Sheboygan Falls. They started off with us just doing OpenPoint web, so they were just doing their work orders, inventory, and property records for water and for electric. And now they're doing the full integration. So that's going to require that they do a full field inventory. And once they're done with that for both electric and water, they'll be fully integrated just like all the rest of our utilities. And so it's a pretty big project, and it's still a work in progress there as well. But we're excited that they're making that move. And we see that as another thing that will probably happen as we continue to roll out to utilities in Wisconsin, where they might start off with just one piece of what we have, and then they'll expand into other areas of our capabilities. And so, of course, we're continuing to grow more and more as far as the different modules and the capabilities and our better support for systems like water. So then other utilities, probably our existing ones, will also be doing some more expansion too. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm excited about the opportunities there as well. So I want to talk about another brand new client that we have, and that's ATMC. And so they're a little bit different. So I wanted to bring them up in particular because of that. So they are actually in North Carolina, and they provide cable TV, phone, and internet services out there. They have 60,000 clients, and they're growing rapidly. So there's been a big push right now to get broadband internet out to rural parts of the United States. So there's a lot of grant money coming in, and so that's causing them to expand rapidly. And so they realized that they needed to get more efficient, and they actually were looking for tools to help them do that. And they went to Esri and asked them about, hey, do you have partners that could help you with that? And they actually they have some in the telecommunications space, but they really didn't have what ATMC was looking for. So they said, hey, OpenPoint, do you think you could do something like this? And we did some analysis. We worked with ATMC, had several meetings with them, and discovered that we really, because of the customization capabilities of our software, we were able to modify it to be able to work within their requirement skill sets that they had. And so I was actually able to do a demo using our tools without any real programming, just configuration work. And I got pretty far through the way what they wanted to see. And so it was enough for them to say, yes, we think you guys can do this. And so we got that that proposal signed a while back. And we just started working with them a few weeks ago. So we're kind of just in the early stages, and we're getting that thing launched as far as understanding the full requirements and doing analysis. And it will take some programming to really get that all completed. But I wanted to mention that partially too, because I didn't want anyone to be concerned about us losing focus with Wisconsin utilities or with water and electric. This is a little bit of an experiment for us. If Esri hadn't pretty much handed it right to us, I probably wouldn't have even known about it or had any thoughts of even going in that direction. But it is something interesting for us to look at. Part of the things too is it's allowing us to kind of stretch our capabilities a little bit, and actually knowing that we were going to do this a while back and thinking that we'd be going in this direction actually pushed us to do some of the things that we'll be talking about today, actually, with Minnie's talks on the cloud enablement of the map stuff. Some of that was stuff we had planned to do, but we started to accelerate that partially because of this project. So I think it's something that will be valuable to everybody overall. But I just want to make everyone aware of it. And if anyone has any kind of questions or anything about that, definitely let me know, and I'll be happy to share more about that. Okay, what else do we have here? So new capabilities. So we'll be seeing a lot of that today. So this one's got more content than the last year as far as overall things that we're going to be showing you. And so the big push that we're making, we have been making lately, has been on mobile. So getting stuff on iPads and on mobile phones. So everything that we're hearing is that there's desires for that. And Esri also has been telling us that's where the big direction is happening right now for them, is that push to be able to do stuff out in the field, and also just to be disconnected from the office is also another important thing that's happening as well. And so we've been really focusing on mobile enablement of a lot of our things. And so you'll see that today in some of the things we're going to be demonstrating, the stuff that I'm showing, the stuff that Minnie's going to talk about. A lot of that's going to be related to being able to be more disconnected from the office. And um, so the things I'll be showing today will be, like I mentioned, that field inventory tool is going to be a part of that, and then what Mindy's going to be showing today will also have a big part of that too. So one thing that we're getting really close to is being able to do an entire work order actually from start to finish on an iPad. So that includes going out into the field with an iPad. You can even create the work order itself from in the field, and then being able to do all of the map work, so you can sketch out new features on the map right there, and then entering all your layout information can be done. Even things like transactions can actually be done that way. Not that you would normally do that, but you could. So we have almost all that working except for one piece, and that's if you have a brand new feature that you want to add to a map, or if you need to move an existing feature. We don't have a smooth way of being able to do the synchronization on that. So if you had a work order that just needed some layout on existing features, that can be done right now today. So, but as far as being able to add those features, that's the next thing that we'll be working on. I don't have a timeline on that yet, and we're exploring some new capabilities in Esri that will allow us to be able to do that a little bit more easily than we thought was going to be possible. So we're going to be really looking forward to that and see if we can get that to go, and see if there's going to be any application for that at some of our existing utilities. We've definitely been asked about that specifically from prospective clients of ours, and so how practical it is at the end of the day, that's a good question. But I think we're close enough to having the tool ready that we'll probably at least put it out there, and then see what value we can get out of that. So let's see. So another big push for us has been on water. You'll see some of that today. Probably the most important thing from a business perspective about that is that I feel like our water capabilities are now really going to be something that would be great to demonstrate to other Wisconsin water utilities. So we haven't really tried to directly go and talk to water-only utilities. There's a good number of them in Wisconsin, and they're going to have a lot of the same requirements that are going to be difficult for other software vendors to handle as far as the PSC is concerned. And so we're really thinking our tool set on the water side will be really beneficial. And really, I think that this advancement will make it so that it just opens up more possible clients for us in Wisconsin, and we hope to grow the community there as well, because of course that's going to help everybody else that has water as part of their system. Will probably get pushed in more directions to do even more, and hopefully that part will just continue to grow and improve over time. And so a few more things here. We have continued to grow our number of reports. So when I started doing this outline for this talk today, we had 230 reports, and I was like, wow, 230 reports, it's amazing. But I checked again right before we started today. We're already at 232. So we just continue to add more things. I think Mindy's working on one that'll be done this week also. That's water related, and so it's just more and more data is coming out of the system. And yeah, that's one of the things we said was a key differentiator with OpenPoint was how easy the reporting is. And I think that seeing so many of these reports coming out of the system has just been really great to see, because to us it feels like, hey, you're getting more out of the system, you're getting more data, and because it's putting it into an Excel format, it's easy to do stuff with that data. So you can copy and paste and other things, you can do charts and graphs, you can do any kind of calculations. It's all structured data that you can actually do something with. So I'm very excited to see that that the reporting side is continuing to grow in this way. YouTube videos, that has also been growing. So we're up to 198 videos, if you can believe it or not. We also have 150 subscribers now. So obviously we're going outside of just our own clients, and other people out there are seeing our videos, and they're thinking they're valuable enough that they're actually subscribing to the channel. We're getting thousands of views. It's kind of amazing. Like even a single video, sometimes will get watched a couple thousand times, especially the ones that are more generic to ArcGIS Pro. And so, but the good thing is that we're always kind of focusing things on with a utility focus. And so we're hoping that, the broader utility community is getting some more value out of the videos. And of course, we have our little blurb at the end of them also to say, a little bit about who we are, and a quick link to our website. So we see this as being hopefully a good marketing channel for us, as well as we continue to grow this out. And the tendency of channels on YouTube over time is that they tend to grow, and they'll get more subscribers, and then they get higher placement in search engines. So it could hopefully spread out quite a bit more than what it is already. We do need to keep it up and keep active with that. So we'll continue to do that. And one of the things that we've done too is we added 2 new playlists. So one is called webinars, and that's going to be for talks like today. We had our last webinar a few months ago that was focused on OpenPoint Map and the new changes that were happening there. So things like that will go into the webinars playlist. And then another one that's called ArcGIS Pro Quick Tips. And that one's going to be very generic to just ArcGIS Pro, and it's not going to have OpenPoint functionality. And it's designed to be videos that are no more than about 3 minutes long. And so the shorter the videos are, the more likely people are going to watch them. And the idea there is to just put them out there for anybody in the world to use, and hopefully they'll get some value, and hopefully they'll hear about OpenPoint this way. And also we think our existing utility clients will also be able to take advantage of that as well. So it's really just quick how-to things on ArcGIS Pro. We've been doing a lot of that already, and so I'm going to kind of be adding some of our existing videos to that playlist, since some of them are already pretty generic like that. So. And finally, we are getting a good amount of interest from Wisconsin utilities. We'll know more in the next couple of months about some potential new clients that we'll be adding for next year. One of the reasons why we're getting this interest is really because of everybody here on this call. I mean, we can't thank you enough as far as how much you've done to help spread the word. Almost everybody has done something to help us in one way or the other, whether that is having a conversation with somebody where you've reached out and recommended us, being there for on-site demonstrations, being there for a call, letting us use some of your data as far as maps and reports and things like that for demos and examples. All those things are tremendously helpful to us and make a big difference as we're going out there on a number of levels. And so when somebody hears from someone like you about us, and you're giving us positive marks, then it goes a really long way, especially since we're so focused in Wisconsin. Having utilities right in their backyard really makes a big difference. And then also just getting a chance to really interact with somebody who's got that direct involvement with us, and hearing about how we do things, hearing about the software, about the customer service, all those things are just a tremendous help to us. So I wanted to send out a big thank you to everybody on all this. Thanks for all your help, and we really, really do appreciate it very much. All right, so that is pretty much it for the business update. So we're going to hand things off to Joel Duchateau at Sun Prairie, and he's going to give a discussion about OMS.
Okay, hi everybody. So what we're looking at here on the screen is what we have as our internal outage map. This is what we have displayed around our offices, can be pulled up by people at their computers, obviously. We have one out in customer service. We have one in the back for the line crew. And the easiest way to talk about this is similar to what I did for our commission, was instead of trying to do a live demo, we're just going to kind of go back and work through an outage that we had here that I was able to recreate and do the screenshots and kind of discuss it as it happened. It was a morning in May where we had this happen. So like I said, this is what we see normally when nothing's going on. What happened that morning was 7:30ish or so, 7:39, I guess the first calls came into Amanda in our customer service department. And so she started to enter the calls manually into the system to report them. And that itself triggered an alert, which that was the only reason that I became aware of it, was because I got an email and a text to tell me that there was outage reports being entered. And Carl, our electric supervisor, happened to be in here too, so we both kind of flipped over this map and started to look at it. And this was fairly close to the time where we really started to take the AMI information and try to display it too. So we were ready to kind of watch and see what happened and try to learn from what was going on that morning. So like I said, first calls were 7:39, and then you can see here we zoomed into the area. Now we've got another call, and so by 7:39 first call, 7:52 was when the AMI came on. Oh, sorry, my bad. This is our public. You can go to that one, Paul. Sorry, I forgot about that. So this is what we have as our public-facing map. So a little different, more general information. We don't have this on our website quite yet, but we're really close to showing it. And so this would just show, somebody goes to our website, they can see that, yes, there's, 4 current outages and what the area that's being impacted is. So we can go to the next one then, Paul. So now here's where the AMI has finally reported back. With the AMI meters, we've realized, sometimes there's blips and other things, so there is a slight delay, but you can see here now that, by waiting those few extra minutes, we were able to confirm that this line was out, and now you can see that, at this point, 6 people have called in that period of time, and now every meter that's attached to this circuit problem has reported back that it is out. And so once that happened, then I was able to select those AMI meters, and now I could add them to an actual outage report. So now everybody's added to this outage event, and that's the way of making sure that we're tracking this properly for use later on. And the one thing, when this happened, I think Carl both thought of it, and one of the line guys, saw the benefit that, they knew a squirrel had got a fuse on one of the transformers, but it didn't just blow that fuse at the transformer, it blew the fuse down the line too, so it actually took out everybody. So, right away they were aware of that. I guess in a field situation, you would, find the first one and then you'd have to go check everything else. Well, in this case, they knew already that was an issue. And so for our guys, it was right away in the morning, and they were at 7:59. You can see on the next slide here that that's when the AMI is all reported back. Oh, sorry, next slide is the public map again. So now you can see that we're zoomed in a little bit. We're still in that under 50 meter outage. We've got the current number of people that are out, and then again the general vicinity of the outage. And so here's where 7:59, the AMI meters reported back that they were fine. And then, so now it's just up to me or somebody in the office to go ahead and close out this outage event, and that will clear out the outage reports, which are those red dots that are showing there. We've just had good luck with this so far. I mean, some outages have been, I guess every time it's a learning event, and this one was just kind of a perfect display of, a line where everybody had the AMI meters, we got the calls, and we were able to see it and learn from it here in the office. And we do have planned outages too. So the next slide, Paul. So this was just where we had to take down 2 customers. There was a lift station, and that happened to be one of our schools was on this. So, obviously we notify the customers of this. We notify in the office, but just because we've told somebody up in the office doesn't mean that everybody would see this. So this way allows us to enter this in. Obviously those meters are going to show out, but then we can, let everybody in the office here know that what we're doing was planned, and they shouldn't expect any calls, or if they do get calls, they'll know to relay that info to our customers. And Mindy's going to talk about this a little more with the notification stuff, but we also display this in our public-facing map, so that if somebody was out and they happened to go there before they called or something, they would be able to tell that what's going on is a known situation and was planned to happen. I think that's the next slide then, Paul, is the and so this shows up a little differently here, but again, just a way to convey what's going on to the public. And so yeah, this was months ago this happened. We've had a number of outages since then, and we see it as a tool. We're constantly learning from it, trying to refine what's happening. We're having good luck with dealing with nuisance meters. Sometimes it's a meter going bad, so we're able to go out and check that right away. And we're really liking where we're at with this, and we are very close to putting this on our website as our public-facing outage map. And as we've worked through the summer on this too, the next trick was, kind of bringing in our line crew, discussing it, and then figuring out a way to extend this to them out in the field. And there was a little trick with that, of course. They all had iPads already, but they have a static version of our map on it. So in order to extend the AMI capabilities to them, we needed an iPad with a data plan enabled on it. And so just probably in the last month or so, we were able to get a new iPad, start working on that map, and we figured out a way to display the AMI outages in the map for the crew. So right now we just have the one iPad that the crew can take home, the on-call guy can take home to use, just to hopefully give them, if they do have an outage, just give them one more visual on what's going on, what they're dealing with. Not always are they coming all the way into the office to see that display in the back. And that general internal map doesn't have all the info that they would need on it. So by extending it to a crew map out in the field, now they're able to see more of our system and then the precise meters that are being impacted.
Yeah, let me switch over to that real quick so you can see that.
Yep. And I'll turn the meters on once you get to it, Paul.
Oops, I grabbed the wrong iPad. Hold on just a second. I've got two iPads going here, one for one demo and one for the other demo. So let's try this again here. There we go. Okay, so you should see a map coming up pretty soon here.
All right. So yeah, this is the exact version of the map. It looks very similar to what we have in the office. So all of our symbols are the same. We're able to keep most of it the same. And then with the AMI part added, now when we have some meters, and I'm just going to turn a couple on here, added them to an outage. And you can see they've displayed on the map now.
So from my perspective, so I'm the one with the tablet, and it just pops up automatically. I didn't have to do anything. I was just kind of zooming around, but I didn't tell it to refresh or anything like that. It's just as long as there's an internet connection, it can just go and it'll automatically get that update.
Yeah. And again, this is a new tool that we're using, but for those from their perspective to be out in the field and be working on something and be able to look at this when they think they've got everybody restored and to get a confirmation by seeing that the AMI meters have dropped off the map, that is what we're trying to get out, to them in the field. So, and I can clear these out here now, and they should just pop off.
Hey, Joel, while that's clearing, so can you talk about, I noticed on the public facing map, you can't see each meter that's out. Is that gonna change, or is that a decision that you guys made so that, you know, the public can't see specifically who's out of power
That
for
is,
security reasons or whatever?
yeah, I guess we kind of, when we were coming up with the design for that, we did keep that in mind. Yeah, you know, most maps are very similar to that. They're pretty vague. Some of them don't even say like how many meters might be out. Sorry, that took a minute, Paul. I forgot to hit save.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I went and
But
told
yeah,
it to go update itself finally, but yeah, it looks like they're gone
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
they're gone.
just yeah, vagueness. You know, like I said, based off of what you see from other utility maps, they're all, even though they're all different, they're all kind of the same, and a lot of them don't necessarily tell the exact number out. But yeah, that was the plan with that, Joe. So.
Okay, thanks. Makes sense.
Let's see. So I'm going to switch back to my slides here, and I had one question for you, Joel. Let's see. I wanted to go back to. So I thought this slide was pretty useful because it does a pretty good job of showing both. So the yellow portions, that was what AMI was reporting, and that happened automatically. And then prior to that, the red ones were the call-ins. And so so you can see that, you know, the yellow and the reds on these cases matched each other. So you knew that, you know, you got the call-ins were happening first. That was the immediate stuff. And then over time, as the AMI starts, you know, getting caught up, then you see those kind of going over in the same spot, but you can see the yellow outlines around them, which I think is really helpful. And so, and then when you were creating that final part there where you added kind of the rest of them to the outage, I mean, it makes a perfect picture like that. So, and so I'm imagining that kind of stuff is pretty helpful to see, like you see AMI and the calls kind of matching up. Is that something that they're finding valuable then when they're just seeing the map and how it's kind of updating itself like that?
Yeah, you know, when we add those in there too, there's a couple reasons we're doing that. It's, you know, one, to make sure that we're adding these customers to the outage, obviously. When that happens, then two, you know, we don't need to worry about, you know, if those customers called. We don't need to really necessarily field any more calls or record them as outages. I mean, if people continue to call in, they've already been added to the event, and if customer service, you know, goes to enter their report in, they will see that they're already, you know, added in there, and they don't have to do anything additional. But, you know, once we started to do this, then we're realizing, you know, over the summer here that, you know, we don't really need to do the old style of recording these outages anymore. I mean, Carl was filling out a paper form and filing it in his drawer. And, you know, after about the third or fourth one, you know, we kind of talked about what the time was and what the reason was. You know, he's like, well, do I need to fill this paper out anymore? I was like, I don't think so, you know, and the crews don't have to worry about it either. I mean, we know when the meter went off, when the meters came back on. So really the only information we need from them is the reason, you know, that the outage happened, because I can get all the customers added to it, trace down the line and make sure that we've got everybody added to it. And then now working on a report with that, we've set it up so that you can create, you know, export the outage events that you need into a spreadsheet, a CSV file, and then the APPA eReliability website has an import feature where you can just import those directly in there, and then that's where we keep track of our statistics for the year for reporting. So we get an accurate time when the meters went off, when they came back on. There's no guesswork involved there anymore, you know, trying to remember. And then we also get an accurate amount of customers too. You know, before it was always kind of, I mean, there was some guesswork involved there. So, so that's, you know, kind of something I hadn't really thought about, but, you know, after just doing a few, we're like, well, we can just, you know, we've got this figured out. We don't need to do anything the old way anymore. So, so that's been a, you know, kind of a tool that I didn't think about right away when we were doing this. And then those notifications that I mentioned earlier, we've been setting up more and more of those. At first, we just had them going to myself, Lori, and Kiera here, just because we were, kind of the group working on it, and we didn't want to bug everybody getting all kinds of notifications. But we've got that set up pretty well now too. So we've set up for our office to get emails just so they're aware if a meter goes out. Carl and Rick, our utility manager, they're getting notifications through text when 5 or 10 meters go out. So if they are not aware something's happening during the day for some reason, but also keeps them up to date on the weekends if something's going on. And then we're going to work on extending that to the rest of our line crew too. At first we were thinking about just doing it for the on-call guy, but our crew leader back there, kind of made the idea that, he would like to get more of them. He'd like everybody to get them so that if there's potential for, a big outage on a weekend, that they're made aware of it before somebody's, having to call them, and they can kind of keep track on it, on their own from home. So those are the things we're working towards right now. And with those iPads too, we've got a few more. We'll probably be replacing all the rest of theirs in their trucks with those, cell connection enabled ones so that they can see those meters, right from their trucks out in the field. So, and I think that's pretty much what I have. If there's any other questions, or if anybody else here in Sun Prairie wants to add anything that I forgot, feel free.
What happens, Joel, when if a customer reports a loud bang in their backyard or something? Is there a notification that goes out to the staff, or does that show up somehow on this outage map, the internal one?
That would be on, yeah, it wouldn't be show up as a different symbol or anything, but it would be noted in when the customer called. I mean, I feel like that's one of the things. I mean, it's good information to have. We definitely want that. It was kind of, it was something that was helpful, but now with AMI, it might not be as helpful because, if you used to have to get a report that a transformer blew to get an exact location of where the problem might be, more than likely now you're going to be seeing that problem on the map because you see what customers are out and where they're being fed from. And if it's a transformer in their backyard, it's going to be pretty apparent that that's where the problem is because the meters are going to be showing that they're fed from there. But we do keep track of that information in case we do need it later on, or if there's a problem and for some reason they're having trouble figuring it out in the field, we would have that information from the customer call still.
Okay. I mean, there might be utilities using this that don't have AMI. And I suppose in that case, it would be nice to have something visual or a specific text going to the crew in those situations. I imagine that's possible, yep. Paul? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, that's how we started out with the form that we had. We kind of went from a system that we had here that was a access database with a way for the customer service to enter things in. And obviously that was the kind of information we were making sure to include in those reports. And, customer calls are always going to be important, but I think we're starting to learn that because of the AMI, we're able to get to the problem pretty quickly, but we still always will have that backup of customer calls and other things, And we haven't had a large event for a while, but I'm imagining in a storm event that's going to be important information too, branches down and other things like that. So.
Oh, sure. If there's multiple outages with many different reasons. Yeah.
Yes.
Everything will just blur together.
All right, so any more questions on Joel's presentation or anything for Sun Prairie related to OMS? All right, we're going to continue to talk about OMS, and Mindy's going to be doing the next part of this. where she's talking about some new capabilities and also some of the more automated and kind of intelligent capabilities of the OMS software. And there'll be an opportunity to ask her questions as well. So Mindy, go ahead and switch over and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Joel, for that presentation. I'm not going to be showing as many pretty pictures, but we're going to kind of go through here and talk about some of the power that we're building into the OMS system to make it smarter. So one of the major powers of the OpenPoint OMS system is its ability to help keep you informed throughout outages and help with reporting and analysis. So some of this stuff Jules mentioned during his presentation as well. So one of the things he mentioned was its ability to notify your staff and your crew. So OpenPoint has very configurable email and text notifications that you can set up and customize for each group so that they can get notified about the things that they want to see when they want to see them and not be over notified for things that aren't important to them. So if they just want to see that there's outages after 5 outages, then they can see that, or they can see them right away. Also, there's the outage maps. So you can have multiple maps. At Sun Prairie has a few different maps. There's internal maps like one that you might see in the office on a bigger screen that has the dashboard information there that gives you some summary information about what's going on with your outages. You can also have ones that are more specialized, like the ones that Sun Prairie uses on their tablets, so that their crew can stay informed and they can look at more of the details of the system and get that information that they need while they're out in the field. And then also, of course, you have your public outage maps, which you can put right on your website that will keep your customers informed, and it can be limited down to just the data that you want them to see so that you can keep some of that confidential information private about the actual customers that are affected, and you can just see the highlight over arching information. You can also write messages that are customized specifically for your customers so that when they click on an outage to get more information, it shows them the messages that you have sent out there to keep them updated about any particular outage that's going on. You can also notify your customers more directly with email and text notifications. So OpenPoint is integrating with My Account and My Meter so that your customers can use the software that they're already used to using for handling their billing with their utility or other notifications for billing stuff. They can also add notifications for outages through that same interface, and then they can get notified via OpenPoint's integration with My Meter and My Account. They'll get notified during outages, and they can get notified when those outages are resolved as well. Also, Joel mentioned that there's the integration with the ability to track your reliability statistics with the APPA e-reliability tracker. You don't have to manually generate that data that goes into the reliability tracker. You can quickly and easily run a report, which is already in the correct format for importing into that system so that you can get your analytics quickly and easily without doing any extra work. All you have to do is use the OpenPoint OMS system during your outages, and then all that information is available when you need it. And then, of course, any type of required utility reporting that you might need to do, OpenPoint is really good at generating reports in the formats that you need. So if you need to track the outage time, you can do that easily through OpenPoint reporting and get all that information that you need out of the OpenPoint system directly. So OpenPoint is expanding to integrate into even more of your systems so that we can provide the best information during your outages. So the best information is going to come from your best data. And so that's where we're trying to tie into. A lot of you have already integrating with your billing systems to pull in your latest customer data. This data is going to feed into your OMS system, and it makes it so that we have that latest information when you're getting those customer calls and you're trying to look up and see what the current outage information is for your customers. You have their latest information there, and it becomes easier to look up that information. It also helps when you need to send out notifications to your customers. You have the latest information available for that as well. Then also your OpenPoint map. This is a key part to your OMS system. For a lot of you, your OpenPoint map is your best source of map information for your utility, and that's perfect because that is the map that OpenPoint natively uses when creating your OMS outage maps and generating those maps and keeping those up to date for you. It's going to be using your OpenPoint map for that. Another key part of your map, if you have it set up, is your connectivity system. A lot of you are using OpenPoint's connectivity and have that set up. That can be really helpful when you're trying to identify the source of an outage. And as Joel mentioned, when you want to figure out what customers could potentially be affected by the outage, you can do your trace down. It selects those customers, then right within OpenPoint Map, you can add those customers to the outage right away in one big group. So that'll quickly add them to the OMS system so it becomes aware of all the notifications that it might need to send out to customers and to staff within your utility to inform them of your growing outage. So there's also real-time customer reporting. So there's the system that facilitates calls coming in. So your customer support are able to use the call entry system to look up the customer's information using your latest billing data, and then get the most recent information about whether or not there's an outage there. Like Joel mentioned, if you go in there and you set up your outage ahead of time, then when they get that call, they can see that the outage is a known outage, and they can get any notifications or updates that there are recorded about that outage and relay that to the customer right away. At that time, they can also still report that the customer did call in, so that will be recorded that there was a call in, even though the first reporting of the outage may have been by the utility itself or by AMI. The system keeps track of the history of reporting at that particular location and when people called in and when information went in and out of the system as far as that particular customer's report. So another piece of information that's available when you're looking up that customer information during a call is the last outage that customer experienced at that location. So you can see if they just had an outage yesterday as well or last week. And so you can be sensitive to that information and be informed when you're speaking with the customer. Also, you might notice that an outage was very recently resolved. It could be the customer's not aware that electricity has come back on. Perhaps they need to go to their circuit breaker and switch that on. So it really tries to keep you informed and give you the best information when you're taking calls. A new feature that's coming. We mentioned that the crew can get notifications, text notifications when they're out in the field about outages that are coming on. But the crew soon will be able to reply back to those text notifications. So they might say, I'm on this one, or this should be fixed in about 20 minutes. Now that notification information goes into OpenPoint, and it records that as part of your outages that are occurring at the time. And it also makes that information available to notify staff who are also interested in getting those updates. So any utility staff who want to receive those check-ins can get those notifications in their email or in their text messages so that they can get the latest information as it becomes available. We think that this will be really useful during outages to keep people informed about what's going on as things unfold, and it'll also help offload the crew so that they don't get a lot of calls or a lot of questions while they're trying to go out there and fix these outages. There's less interruptions so that they can focus on what they're doing and just send out notifications when they're available, and they don't get a lot of questions while they're out there. This information that with the check-ins is also available when you are looking into an outage itself. So if you look into an outage, you'll see all the check-ins that happen during that outage, so that you don't just have to look on your phone or in your email to see that information. The information is right there with the outage details information as well, so that you can see the entire history of what happened during that outage. And then, of course, while you don't have to have AMI in order to use the system, it's really helpful to have the AMI and MDM systems feeding into your OpenPoint system. But the more important piece of the AMI is that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. In the OpenPoint system, we're trying to take into account the entire context of your system when we're looking at the AMI information, so that we don't just have tunnel vision and just believe the AMI is what it is and take it for face value. We're trying to add in all the information that we have about your system to make that information even more useful. So when we take the AMI information and put it in context, we can create more accurate notifications and start building more trust in the system. One of the things that we do to help detect false alarms is we communicate closely with the MDM system when we receive AMI notifications. So what happens is the AMI notification comes into the system saying that there's an outage. And the first thing that OpenPoint does is it queries the MDM system to get a verification on that outage. So we don't want to send out a notification when we have AMI that are being blippy, or perhaps AMI that has been uninstalled. If you query the MDM system, sometimes it can come back right away with, actually, it looks like this meter has been uninstalled from the system. And so we can immediately resolve that, knowing that it's not affecting a customer. Another thing that might happen is that the MDM could respond back and say, actually, it looks like that meter is back up again. And so perhaps the AMI meter is becoming faulty and giving incorrect outage notifications. And we can go ahead and detect that early on without sending out alarms and interrupting everybody with things that aren't affecting customers. Another piece to this is the auto verification using your latest installation information in OpenPoint. If OpenPoint knows that you've uninstalled that meter, then very likely you're getting an AMI outage that's coming from your test bench. Perhaps you're doing a test on the meter, you pulled the meter, you're doing some tests on it, and very frequently during those tests, the AMI meter will notify the MDM system that there's an outage. But you want to make sure that the outage is really affecting a customer and it's not just a test. And so we use that installation information to identify those situations and prevent that chatty notification from happening because it's not affecting any customers. Another thing that we do is with the OpenPoint OMS, we're relentless in trying to resolve those silent meters. So what happens is we have an AMI meter that reports an outage, and then it goes silent. And during that time, the AMI could be resolved, and sometimes the notification might get lost somewhere along the way, or perhaps the meter comes on and it simply doesn't give that okay because of the way in which it came on. There's a lot of reasons that seem to kind of interrupt that okay message. And so what OpenPoint does is it makes scheduled checks against the MDM system until that AMI meter has resolved. So that really helps to make those okay messages more reliable, and it helps to get those AMI meters resolved as soon as they can be resolved. So there's also the ability for you to go into the system and identify meters that may be giving faulty outage reports, or meters that you expect to give outage reports that you're not interested in seeing. So perhaps you're going to go out into the field, do a little bit of work, and you don't want to get notifications from the meter while you're working on it. Or perhaps you're going to do some tests on a meter and you don't want to get those notifications. You can go into the system, tell it ahead of time that you'd like the meter to snooze for a while so that it doesn't give those notifications that you're not interested in seeing. And so then during that period of time that you specify, you won't be getting those notifications. You won't get interrupted from that until the time has expired, and then it'll start notifying again if any notifications come through. Another tool is the ability for you to manually request verification from the MDM system. So OpenPoint automatically schedules MDM checks when you have an AMI that's reporting out. But sometimes you want to do a check sooner. So perhaps you don't want to wait for the next scheduled MDM check and you want to check right away. You can easily go into the system and ask OpenPoint to do a check immediately, and it'll do a check right away. And then it'll be more relentless with its check on that particular meter for a while, trying to get that verification. You can also ask for a verification on a meter that hasn't reported an outage. So perhaps you get a call and you have some questions about that meter before you get out there, before you're at their location. You can do a request against the MDM to get information about that meter before you even go. Another way to prevent notifications that might be nuisance is to set up your planned outages. So we looked at planned outage in Sun Prairie's map. You can set these up ahead of time, and that way, when the AMI start coming through for this planned outage, OpenPoint is already aware that those outages should be coming in. And you can choose to ignore these for notifications. So if there's a group at your utility who doesn't want to be notified during planned outages, then OpenPoint is aware that those MAI are actually planned and that you don't need to receive those notifications. So those can be silenced for those groups who don't want to be bothered with that information. Finally, there's lots of ways to visualize your outages. One thing is you can see on your map whether or not things are planned. We kind of saw that with Sun Prairie's map, where you had the AMI outages, but then they had the blue dot on those to indicate that those were actually planned AMI outages versus the red ones, which are unplanned outages that are coming through at a location. You can also visualize some of the older AMI outage notifications. So if you have some new notifications coming through and you want to know what's new, you can look at your map and you can see the one color for AMI that are newer notifications, and then things that maybe have been sitting around for a while, perhaps because of a faulty meter, or perhaps just some testing out in the field that that isn't part of the newer outage, then you can immediately see the difference and immediately see what needs your attention. So all of this work to help keep the AMI information more accurate and more up to date automatically has really created more trust in the system. And we've started a new feature that makes it so that after a certain number of outages on a certain circuits, that OpenPoint is automatically creating outages for the public outages and for the internal outage maps based on the AMI. And so it's really that trust that makes that type of automation possible and makes it so that you can really get more use out of your system. So that's all we have for the OMS stuff for today. Are there any questions that people had, additional questions on the outage stuff before we move on to inventory?
You must have done a good job there, Mindy. No questions.
We drilled home OMS so much, they're ready to move on.
All right.
Looks good.
Yeah, it is. We are very excited about where things are at with it. It's definitely come a long way in a relatively short period of time. So our next topic for today is going to be talking about the field inventory tool that we have working on the iPad. And the tool itself is designed so that you can take the iPad out in the field and you can sketch out any new assets, so you can, from scratch, put out, poles and wires and hydrants and, whatever the new item happens to be. And then also put in your construction unit data. So all that plant data and the map information is all going in at one time. So theoretically, once you've gone through that process, then you could generate property records directly from that without much more than just some basic audits and things. And so a lot of field inventory tools just use Esri themselves or another package where it's just kind of collecting the attributes. And so we take it another step further where you're really structuring the data in a better way, at least as far as property records are concerned. A lot of times people do this type of work and they're not necessarily thinking about property records, they're just thinking about creating a map. And so this kind of combines both efforts into one thing. It also takes advantage of any GPS hardware you have on the device. And so there's a number of devices that work really well with the Esri tool sets and with iPads. And there are ones that are down to sub-meter accuracy, which usually works pretty well for electric utilities. And then there's ones that go down to centimeter accuracy. And we have one of our current field inventories for water is actually using the centimeter level of accuracy. And so, of course, the higher the accuracy or the greater that precision, the more the unit costs. So that is something to keep in mind. But the prices have been coming down generally, so it isn't super unaffordable. So really depending on that level of accuracy that you need. And so we designed the tool to really be initially for full field inventories. You're kind of going from scratch, and you need to really do the entire thing. But it could be used for smaller projects as well. So if you have a new subdivision, for example, and you want to go and GPS the whole thing and really get all that information and do it while you're out in the field and you're seeing everything, it can be used for that. If you wanted to audit a portion of your system, say it was one that you didn't have a lot of confidence in, maybe you have a map and you've got the data for it, but you feel a lot better if you were to go through it again and really update it with more accurate information. It can be done using that. Or if you have a certain asset that you're not super comfortable with, maybe you want to go and revamp your street lights or revamp your hydrants, it can be used for that as well. And so as you're looking at this, I'm going to do a quick demo just to show this on the iPad, but maybe be thinking about other uses for how something like this can be done. And so and before that, I wanted to show a document too. So, we've been involved in a number of field inventories over the years, even before OpenPoint. And a lot of times, they don't always do a great job of collecting the information up front and just like getting things prepared for doing a field inventory. So one of the things that we've been doing with the ones that are currently in progress is we really took a lot of time and we really tried to understand exactly what was being collected, how that's going to map to the property records, making sure things from an operational standpoint, they're getting that information collected as well. And then what we did is we created documents like the one that you're seeing here, where we go through each asset, so in this case, the distribution poles, and then we indicate what the symbols are, so what some symbols you select and what those mean. And then these little icons here tell them that they're going to collect attributes, or this means that they're going to collect construction units. This means they're going to take a photo. This means they're going to do some maintenance or inspection type work. And then the rest of it for that section is just like, here is exactly how to do the work for distribution poles. And so I'll take it down to the next one here. This one was for streetlight poles, and this one they didn't need to take photos of it, so they X'd out the camera icon there. If you go down even further, you'll see a little bit more complicated collection, which is on the overhead transformers. So this one, we had to deal with the fact that you could have multiple transformers on a single pole. So how do you deal with that? And different information that helps them to understand exactly what needs to be done. And then we try to do it in a way that's a really kind of a user-friendly approach. And this can be printed, so they can have it in a notebook and have a printed document, or on all the iPads, we put links out to the document out in the cloud, so that from the iPad itself, you can always pull that up. So this is one of those things where typically in the first stages, you'll probably be referring to that quite a bit. Then as you're doing it, you tend to get a pretty good feel for all the things you need to do. And maybe you come back here once in a while just as a refresher to be able to remind yourself exactly how to do a certain type of activity. And so it's also great later on to come back to a document like this to be looking at, well, what did we do when we went out and collected that information? It does a great job of kind of going into detail and really describing that. So I'm going to switch over to my iPad. It's going to take me a second. So let me kind of get this going here. Let's see, sharing my screen and starting the broadcast. So we're using Esri's Field Maps tool. And one thing I wanted to mention about that while this is figuring itself out here is that the older Esri products, the Collector and Explorer, are actually their end of life is coming up relatively soon. It's supposed to be happening actually at the end of this year, and so I don't. And they're saying they're not going to be doing any updates to those. They're not going to be providing support after 2021. So everything is going to the Esri Field Maps application. So keep that in mind if you're still using Explorer in particular. I think that's one that we started with ourselves, and then Field Maps just came out. I think it was October of last year, or maybe it was September. So it's just around a year old. And so one of the things we're always trying to do is stay up on the latest technologies. We didn't want to be in a situation where we had a bunch of people using Collector to do this work, and then something comes up like a bug and it never gets fixed by Esri because it's no longer being supported or updated. And so we made the shift and we went to Esri Field Maps right away after it was released. There was a little bit of a penalty on that though, because there were some bugs that Esri had that need to be worked out, and we've actually been providing some help on some of that to help guide them and reproduce some of those errors so that they can get those fixed. And so I think most of that's all taken care of now. And so, okay, so what we have here is we are taking a look at a map. I'm actually using an iPad, and I'm going to sketch out a PED, a meter, and some wires. I'm going to put it all together, and then I'm going to add some construction units, and I'll show doing some modifying and deletion and things like that, just to do a quick idea of what the tool can do and basically how it works. So a lot of this is just Esri Field Maps out of the box, and then of course we've made our enhancements to it to be able to do the construction units and things like that. So first I'm going to hit the plus button in the lower right hand side there, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do a pedestal. So I'm going to find that in the list, and I'm going to select that. And then typically what you would do is, let's see, you would actually in the upper right hand corner, there's a little arrow, and that's the GPS button. So if you had a GPS device, you would hit that, and that's going to take it, that's where it's going to give you that high level precision. So I'm actually just using the iPad's internal device, so its accuracy shows that in the top center. GPS accuracy is around 6 meters or so right now, and that's not quite what we want. So I'm just going to do this all manually, and you'll get the basic idea by doing it this way. So I'm placing my pedestal, and I'm going to say update point, and then submit, and so that's going to add it to the map. And then from here, I can go, and the very first thing on this left-hand panel is a link, and that actually takes us to OpenPoint Web. And I'm already signed on, so it's going to take me right to a screen where I can now enter in the construction units. So I'm just going to go hit the orange plus button, which a lot of you are familiar with that. And I can go ahead and type in my construction unit code if I happen to know that. Or I can do a find code option, or I can do it by category and subcategory. So in this case, I'm going to pick cabinet and secondary. I'm going to hit the find code button, and I've got two options here. So I'm just going to click on pedestal secondary. And for this one, that's really all I need to do. It's got a count of 1. It's putting in the current year. It knows the district. And I'm not going to do a description on that. So I can just go hit save, and that will complete that part. And then if I want to go to field maps, there's an upper left-hand corner button I just clicked on. And that's really about it. I can also go in if I would like and enter an attribute. So I can put in a district just by clicking on it, and I can put that information in. Oops, I guess I need to say edit first. And then do a district real quick, or a circuit, excuse me. And then I can put in a station number if I want to do that. Just put 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I can just say update and again submit. And so that's just a real quick way of doing that. Of course, there's a bunch of other attributes, and I'm not going to continue entering in attributes just because I wanted to get the basic idea across and do this demo kind of quickly. So let's go and do another item here. I'm going to go, this time I'm going to do a meter. And so I'm going to put that out over here and update point again and submit. There's no construction units on it, so we don't need to do that step. So now I can go and I can put in my wires. And so this time I'm going to take the crosshairs and go and snap. If you can see me moving toward that pedestal, it highlights it with that little orange dot. So that kind of means it's going to snap to that particular location. And so it kind of moves the screen. I don't know if you saw that kind of quickly, but it actually shifts the screen over a little bit when it does that. And then I'm going to pick my wire, and then I'm going to go and draw out to the next point. Again, it snaps to that the next segment there. And then I can say add point, and again, submit. So that just draws the line out. So before I mentioned using the GPS option when I did that pedestal, and I would have done that for the meter as well. But once you have GPS points in place like that, you don't need to continue to then add additional points or add additional GPS shots because you already have GPS shots that you're connecting to. So same when I do this service wire, then I can go in here and snap to the first one, and then go and select the service underground and go right out to that meter. And again, add point and submit. And so, so probably I'd go back here and start putting in my my various construction units. So I go back to that wire, and you know the exact process you use can vary a little bit. So in that case, I actually put my wires in back to back, and then I'm coming back, and then I'm going to go and do my construction units. So I can go in here and do my wire and say that was I'm going to do underground secondary and find code. I'm going to do some triplex here. And typically for the lengths, we tell people when they're doing field inventories just to leave those at their default values. And then we'll go and do an automated process for matching that up to the sketch length. If there's something that is unique about a certain situation where the way you drew it in is going to be different than the actual footage, you can always enter that length in here. And then we wouldn't update that when we went to go and do the finalization of the import of that data back into your system. But again, just like before, once it was done, you just click on the save button and go back to your map, and you can keep on going. And so that's really it for the basics as far as adding new things in. To do deletions, let's say I wanted to, let's do a movement here. I'm going to go and click on this meter and say I needed to shift these both around a little bit. I can go in and do that, and I can say go into edit mode, and I can move the crosshairs again, and I can just say update point and submit, and then it's going to move that over. It shifts down, and then same with the wires. It's a little bit different with wires. You have to go in and say that you want to say the wrong button there. let's see, update selected point, and then I want to delete the point or update, yeah, delete selected point. And then now I can move in and say add a new point and then submit. And so it's, it's pretty easy to use if you haven't used any of these tools before. It's takes a little bit to get used to the wires and pipe and things. Or anything that's a linear unit is a little bit more complicated, especially as you have to do things like things where you're got angles and segments and things like that. We have videos and all this stuff, of course, show you all this in detail. But overall, it's pretty straightforward to use, and we continue to work on enhancing this to make it more usable for different types of things down the road. So I think that's all I had on the field inventory tool. Any questions on that before I move on to the next thing? Okay, so I need to log into, let's see, I need to actually share my screen again back here. And I'm going to go on to the next segment, and I've got another little setup routine here I've got to do for that as well. Give me just a second, and I'll get that taken care of.
So I guess if anybody would be considering updating any of their map features, just moving the stuff around wouldn't make any difference to the CPR, obviously. Lengthening a wire wouldn't even impact the CPR if you just lengthen the way that it looks, but don't change the length on the construction units pane. So it is a really nice tool, even for existing utilities, to make some corrections to the map.
All right. So yeah, let's switch on over to the field activities module. So basically, the field activities module is a way of doing certain types of activities out in the field with an iPad. So it's mostly designed for maintenance and inspection types of work, but really it could be for anything where you need to go out into the field and collect information that goes beyond just what you would have as far as the standard attributes that you would normally enter, like we did on the iPad real quick. And so the idea is that things like valve turning, hydrant flushing, hydrant painting, any kind of like pole inspections, those kinds of things it'd be valuable to have not just the information, but also to have it historically, and also set things up so that they're in kind of a project type format. So a lot of these things you do every year or every so often. And so the tool sets that we designed is to help make that a little bit of an easier process, and to give you really good reporting capabilities around that, so that you've got some structured data to be able to pull information that you need for various reports or for anything related to it that would be helpful. And so one thing about Esri is it does a good job of, just with the built-in tools, of being able to just do the basic collection. But as soon as you get outside of that, then it gets to be a little bit more complicated to do. And we're really just trying to streamline that and then put that data out in the cloud instead of it just being inside of the map, which gives you more things that you can do with it, basically. So I've got a map up here that's set up to be able to do a valve turning. So this is dedicated to that. And what I did is I broke out the map into zones, and I color coded those to help clarify what's going on. And also within that, you see there are green valves and there are gray valves. So the gray ones have been turned. So we've completed the work on those. The green ones have not been turned. And so what that does is it lets you easily see what has been done and what hasn't been done. Over time, you'll see more of the grays start to cover that map, and it will make it really obvious that where you are at in the process. And so and then we've got tools that help you up in this section. So we've got this new tab. It's called Field. When you have that module turned on, you'll see that. And you've got ways to be able to select whatever the activity is. So let's say it's valve turning, and then to be able to say, okay, I want to assign certain things. Like, so what you do, like for a zone, there's a way to be able to say, select all of the valves that are in this particular polygon. And so then you can then apply those to a particular project and just basically set things up. You can assign the zones to individual people or to crews. You don't have to have zones. Also, you can just do a single one big zone that just basically has it all in one. It's really flexible as far as how this stuff works. And the idea is just to make this a highly usable tool for being able to organize the projects and to get this stuff done, and then to see the status as it's going along. And so, so really, I think a key thing is being able to show, how do you do the actual valve turning out in the map. And so, I was trying to get this. I was going to do a live demo on this, but I only have 2 tablets, and doing the setup for it would take a little bit of a bit of time. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to do a screenshot on this and show what that would look like. So let me go to that real quick here. Okay, this is where it is. So you saw the map that we had, and we had things set up in zones. And so you had somebody, let's say I am the one that's in charge of doing all of the valve turning for zone 1, let's say. And so I go out here with my iPad and click this button here. This is the GPS icon that tells, this actually brings the map to where you're at in the real world. Now you might notice that the GPS accuracy in this example is 7 meters because it's still using the built-in tablet GPS and not an actual, one of those highly accurate units. So in this case, it really doesn't matter a whole lot because what we really want is just to get to the general area. The valves are already on there, and all I really need to do is just go and click on one of those and select it to be able to then do the valve turning activities against it. So in this case, you can see the one. So you can see this one I just did. It's grayed out because it was completed, and then I'm moving on to this next one. And so I clicked on that one. It brings up this panel. You kind of saw that before in the field inventory demo about how that works. And then what we did is there'll be a link that goes over to this other screen, and that is an OpenPoint web. So this is where it's actually in the cloud. Now, to the person doing the work, it's not necessarily important whether it's doing it, on the map that's locally to the device, or whether it's in Arcgis online, or whether it's OpenPoint cloud. They're just looking at this as, I'm doing these valve turns and I'm just doing my regular work. So really, no one has to really think about this. But I wanted to mention it just because it is helpful to understand, what's happening with the data as it's actually occurring. And so to actually say, hey, I want to turn the valves on this one, you just go to the activity status, you just click, it brings you up a drop-down menu, and you just select. In this case, we said exercise, good condition. There can be things, I'll show kind of the list of different statuses, but it could be, maybe it has a hard time turning, maybe there are other things where it needs to be repaired. All that can be then indicated. There's also a date that goes right along with that. And so you can select that as well. And so also the condition of the valve can be entered, activity notes, and other things too. So maybe you want to have things recorded like turns to open or the open direction. That's not something you would enter every time, but if you didn't have it and someone was out there doing the valve turns, well, then maybe you want them to go and collect that information while they're doing it, while they're on the same form. And so all that stuff can be done while that activity is taking place. So it gives you an opportunity to also just improve the data quality that you have with your maps during these types of activities. And this form that you're seeing here is completely customizable. So in this case, we try to keep it really short and sweet. So there's just really very little to do. But if you wanted to have more information that you're collecting about whatever the activity was, then you can just add that down further in the bottom. And so really, it's any field that you want, it can basically do. And there's various different types of data. There can be drop downs. Like I said, it's just a fully customizable form that lets you collect that information. So once if you've completed entering the information, you just press the save button, and that's it. You're ready to move on to the next one in the list. And so that process just continues on, and the person just does their work for the day. And back at the office, I'm going to switch back now, and we'll take a look at what they are actually seeing. Let's see if I have the right, oops, the wrong one. Let's see. I thought I logged into one of these here, but let me log in again real quick. And I'm in water. Okay, yep, the right place. So I'm going to go over to the field activity menu option, which is new. And right now, so this would list, this is kind of the dashboard for all the field activities. So if you had a water system, you had hydrant inspections and hydrant painting and hydrant flushing and other things that were things that you typically would do, all those things would pop up here, and then you would drill down to go into that one particular area. So I'm going to go into valve turns, and this is the dashboard for the valve turns activity. And at the top here where it says current activity status, you can see that just kind of at a glance, where are we at with this particular work effort? So you can see that 163 are pending, so nothing has been done at all. 61 of these were exercised good condition, just like the example that I showed. We had one that could not be turned at all and needs to be repaired. We had one that was exercised. We were able to turn it, but it was hard to turn. And then we had a couple also that were exercised but needs repair of some kind. And so if I'm curious about that and I want to see, well, what exactly was going on, I can click that item there. I can see the 2 records, then I can drill down and I can get the full details about that one particular valve. And so I can see it says exercise needs repair. If I click on more attributes, I can see if there's any additional notes or data. I can see the zone where the activity occurred. Probably somebody would have had put in some notes to saying exactly what was going on with that particular valve and why it needed to be repaired. And then you also have a complete history. So you have the date, the device condition or information about it, and any additional notes. So as that information is being recorded over time, then you can see that, and it just builds that history up for that particular item. You can also have attachments as well. So if you want to take a picture of that particular valve and maybe you wanted to show something going on with it, then you'd be able to do that. So, or it could just be any kind of document. It could be some kind of repair document. Anything that you would find that would be useful can then be attached right to that at that point. And so also, anytime you see these little icons here, you can click on them and then you can go into the map and then you can pull up that particular item. I'll do that on the next one. I want to make sure I've got that all straightened out on this particular one. So, let me see if there's more to that. I think that's really the basics for the valve turning capabilities. And then in general, I think it gives a pretty good idea of what the field activities stuff can do. We're going to definitely be adding more of these. We'll have more examples that we can show in the not too distant future. And we'd love to hear from you as well. It's like, what kinds of things do you think you could do with this? Maybe even being creative about things we haven't really thought about. So anything you have along those lines, definitely let me know. I'm definitely curious to get feedback on this. Again, this is brand new. No one's using this just yet. So hopefully this will get some use pretty soon, but it's new enough to where we still have to a little bit of, really the programming side is really done. It's more just getting it up and running for somebody and getting it configured and set up. So I think that's about it for that. Any questions on field activities before I go on to the next thing?
So what happens when I have a new valve in my system? Do I have to add it to the map, or does that automatically happen?
When you say a new valve, you mean just a new symbol that's been added to the map, or do you mean?
Yeah.
So that so this whole process. Remember when I showed the map and I had the zones, then we had that idea that that those can be added, to whatever the activity is that you're working on, and I think that there was also a way to have a more automated approach when you didn't have zones as well. Is that right? Isn't there something that you can do when you don't have when you want to do something that's brand new?
Yeah, the system actually automatically adds all your valves. So OpenPoint maintains your activity maps for you automatically. So you handle the main map where you're adding new valves and deleting existing valves, and OpenPoint will propagate those updates out over into all of your activity maps for you automatically.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the water service locations. And let's see here. How do we want to describe this one here? I'm going to go into different map here and a different part of the system. So I'm going to go into the asset system and this new option here called water service locations. So let me go into that. And so, like I mentioned in the beginning, you might not really know what a water service location is. So I think the kind of way to start this off is to define what those are. And so a water service location is a record in OpenPoint that represents a home or business where you're providing water service. And in most cases, there's going to be a one-to-one relationship with one of these water service location records and your billing records. And so we're actually, basically extending out the amount of information and things that you can do with this water service location concept. So we do tie in customer information, so that's going to pull everything that you have from the billing system. But then there's a lot more to it than that. And so you can track, of course, meters and meter tests. And so that's kind of a given. Cross connections, you can have all that information in there. So you can, we'll be doing a cross connection report, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then also things like customer complaints and any kind of scanned documents or photos can also be put in there as well. And so what we discovered is that there's a lot of information that can be tied into the water service location concept. And so you also can have a web version of it. So we're going to be looking at a lot of this over the web, but there's a direct tie also to the map so that you can go back and forth very easily. And so I'll kind of give an example and show that flow back and forth between the two. And so but the idea is this gives you this information at your fingertips, whether you are at your desktop, whether you're in Arcgis Pro or on the web. You could be out in the field and doing this on an iPad or even on an iPhone. And it's just like I showed before, that ability to use the field tools to be able to click a button for your GPS, take you right to that location on the map, and then directly being able to get to all this information. And so I'll kind of give you more of that information as we go on, and you can see that, see how it handles that really nicely going back and forth. And so a lot of places we've talked to are doing this by having a lot of different systems too. So you might have spreadsheets, you might have databases, you might have a specialty application for tracking these various pieces and parts. And so we're trying to put all that information together so that it is all under one roof, one user interface, one data repository, and then there's one set of reports that are coming out of it as well. And there's also a lot less data entry. So if you do have multiple systems for handling this, you just have to put it in one time, and it just takes care of linking it to the rest of the data that's available. So let's take a look at this screen here. This is the water services location dashboard, and it's similar to the other ones you've seen in OpenPoint. It just gives you an easy way of being able to get to water service location records. Just like with the job system, which I think a lot of you are familiar with, the records at the top, these are the most recent ones that you've looked at. And so you can see that you've got this this number here. That's actually, we call it the location number. It's the same thing as you have on your water and electric meters when you're adding sockets, is that same location number value. And again, a lot of times this is going to be an account number. In this example, I've got these 3 to 5 digit numbers, or just unique numbers that are identifying each one of these services. If you click on the record, it goes right into it. I'll do that in a second here. Right below that, we've got the kind of the status overall of what's happening. And we've got 3 categories here. In service means that there's an active water service, the customer is being billed. Service available means that there is the possibility of putting water service. It's all set up to do it, but there isn't a current customer that's actually actively receiving that service or being billed. And then service ended means usually it's there's no service and there's never going to be service again. So that house is getting bulldozed for something else that's going to be going in there, or something on those lines where there just isn't going to be service available anymore. And so if I want to go in, I can. Then also the top bar is a search bar. And so again, if you have account numbers and you're used to kind of looking things up that way, you can put those in there and just hit enter. Or if you want to do things like search by a street, so I'm going to put in Wilson Street here, and it's going to do a match on all the service addresses where there's the word Wilson in there somewhere. And then from there, I can drill down and get to all the details. And so you can also do house number, meter number. There is a whole bunch of different advanced search capabilities here, even like cross connection status, meter installation dates, all kinds of things that you can use to be able to find stuff. And then, like I said, typically you're going to probably put in an account number or the location number. So in this case, I got one that I have got set up for us to look at. So 8501, and I'm going to click on that. And so this is a single water service location record. So I'm going to go and kind of break down what this actually is comprised of. So at the top, we've got that location number. And then right below that, we've got the meter attributes. So we've got the meter number, transponder number, which is optional, the meter serial number, meter size, the manufacturer, the type of meter, the last time the meter was tested, the next meter test. If I click on more attributes, there's even more information, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But then we also have the service location attribute. So this applies on the left to the meter specifically. This is service locations more applying to the actual address itself. And so we've got the status there. We have things like the whether or not a fire service line is present. So this one, we've got one present. It's showing whether the cross connection has been passed or not. So it can be pass failed or it can be unknown. The last time a cross connection inspection was done, the next time it needs to be done, the customer lateral material and the customer lateral size. And I'm going to go in and actually drill into this. I'm going to go into more attributes and talk about some additional fields that we have there as well. So along with the customer lateral information, we also have the utility material and also its size. And so I wanted to mention that in particular because probably everyone by now is aware of the changes in the lead and copper rules that are happening that are affecting you and your inventory requirements that you're going to have to be doing starting in 2024. So you've probably already got the document from the Wisconsin DNR stating that you have to have basically an inventory of all of your services indicating things like the customer side material and size, the utility side material and size. And there's some additional fields that also have to be captured as well. And so a lot of this is new as far as the requirements themselves, and even some of the fields were things that I wasn't expecting to see, like whether lead solder was present, things along those lines that maybe you haven't had to worry about before, but will now need to be captured and reported on an annual basis. And so we're actually going to be adding some additional fields pretty soon to this screen to be able to collect more of that information. And we're also going to be studying those requirements to make sure there isn't something that we're missing. We're likely going to go back to the DNR and ask them to make sure that we've got everything covered and that they feel like the information will satisfy the requirements. They do highly recommend that you tie everything to a GIS system. It's not absolutely required, but it is a good practice. So, and I think that some of the options for being able to do the reporting will also be being able to display the information visually in a map. So again, that's not going to be required, but they would like to see this be more visual and capture the data elements that they're looking for. So this is an area that might make a lot of sense for us to get together as a group, maybe a subset of our utilities and the ones that have water requirements, and take a look at this and to see if this would be a good way for you to be able to handle these requirements. And we'd also like to get feedback on the things that we are doing and the things that we're thinking about. So you do have some time. You have until 2024, but you do have to go out and collect some of this information. So if you don't have records and things, obviously put that together as best you can, but you may need to go out there and do some checks and figure out what it exactly is you have out there. And of course, our tools can help with that as well. So I wanted to put that out there. That's something we'll probably come back to in the future as well. And so, but moving on back to this screen here, we also have some additional cross-connection information. So I mentioned a couple of the fields. We also have the cross-connection test frequency. We have the cross-connection inspected by field and also some notes about the cross-connection. I'll generate a report. You'll see that. There's actually going to be some additional fields that one shows, and I'll show you some of the kind of the uses for that information as well. So let me close this down, and we will go back into this main service location record here. And then another feature that we have that's tied to this is Like I mentioned, these icons are in different places in OpenPoint Web already. And when you see them, that means that it's going to copy that item to the clipboard. It'd be the same as if you had highlighted this text here and press Control-C to actually copy it. But the idea is that that global ID, that unique value, ties into the map. And so let me go into the map here. And if I go and go into the OpenPoint menu and I paste that ID in there, then I can jump right to that particular meter on the map. And so we just went right out and we went right to that particular location. And so it was just a real quick and easy process to do that. And so when you're on, so these squares, rounded squares here, are the meter symbol representations. And if I go over to my assets button here, then I can see you can have multiples associated here. So maybe you have a duplex and each one has separate water service, but you only want a single symbol, then you can have that. Just do a new socket and then it'll add that as well. So you can see that we've got that same location number, the 8501 that we saw on the web, so it's matching there. If I click on customer, I can see some of the customer information filled out, but probably a lot of times the easiest thing to do is actually to click this service details button. So we came from the web and we went to the map, but going the other direction makes a lot of sense too. Maybe you're in the map and you're doing something and you want to get some more information about it. When you click service details, it goes right back into OpenPoint Web and it goes to that exact screen that we were just on. So it's querying and going right to the 8501 record, and you got all the additional information about it. So imagine when you're here and you're on your map, you're doing some type of activity. Maybe you're inspecting different parts of the map to get information. You want information about who is there, who's the customer, what's the cross connection status information. I'll show you some of the additional information that they have. All the details about the meters and meter tests. We'll also have document attachments and things like that are all available. And so it's just really quick and easy to be able to go from the map. And this is true not just in your desktop, but also your phone and your tablet, any of the maps that you have, and be able to go right into getting all this information. So, again, you can use the tools like doing a locate search and putting in an intersection, or you can put in a complete address. And you can have bookmarks that take you right to a certain spot, or maybe you're traveling down a certain street and you want to see information there. All that stuff is possible. And again, you go right from the map, and with just one click, you go into the full record that has all the additional information. And so some of that information we've covered. So let's talk about what else is there. So you've got the full location contact. So name, phone number, email address, whatever you have in your billing system, it'll pull that in and tie those things together. The button here for making a call actually works. So I've got this tied to my Android phone. So when I click on it, it'll send that phone number to my Android device and I can make a call. Some utilities have this hooked up to their internal office phone system. So Cedarburg has that today, where you can click on that button and it'll actually use their phone system to dial the number. Email, of course, if you click on this, it's going to go right into your email client. So I've got Outlook, and it's going to prompt me to be able to enter that information right there. So I've got the ability to send an email off to them really quickly. And then below that, you've got the owner information. I only have a part of that information available, but if we had the owner phone number and email address, that would also show up there as well. And so, and again, imagine you're out in the field and you want to contact somebody really quickly. You've got just your phone even can use the map and get right to this information, so you can make a call or contact the person very, very easily. So we also have a link that goes out to Google Maps. And so I just have a fake address here plugged in. But one nice thing about this is, being able to use the street view. So that's probably one of the things that I like the most about the Google Map system is, of course, you've got imagery maps that are already part of the ArcGIS Pro system, but maybe you want to be able to go and actually go and see what's happening at the street level. I've used this so many times when I've done work. So you can see there's a hydrant buried right here. But that ability to be able to look at your map, then go to Street View and see information and tie that all together is very handy. So I don't know how often that some of you are doing that with what you have. And I do know that in some cities the street view stuff isn't as updated as others. Some of our utilities, it's amazing how much detail is there. Others, not so much, unfortunately. So, but over time, Google will add more and more information to that, and you'll be able to get a lot more information that way. So, see, real quick too, I just want to go over a few more things, and then I will hand it off. Document attachments. So just like any of the document attachments that we have for the water service locations, having meter reports, meter test data, you might have a cross connection survey form, meter change out forms, end of service information, and of course, having a curb box photo is also can be very helpful. So all that can be attached. I think Jill's going to talk a little bit more about attachments and some of the things that we're doing with that, and just kind of give you some updates on that as well. You can also do customer complaints. And so in this case, we've set up some different types of complaints, and you can see a history of them as you go throughout time. It shows the newest ones first. And I'll just show one real quick. This one, there's an odor problem. So we've got a complaint type and a complaint category. So we're kind of categorizing that as water quality issue, the name of the person who made the complaint, their phone number, a description of that, and then a resolution. And so these forms, just like with the field activity forms that you saw before, these are completely customizable. So every utility can capture just the information that they want. And so in this case, we were trying to keep this simple. We modeled this off of something that Hartford is doing currently. And one of their primary reasons, besides having this electronically, is to also be able to do their DNR reports from it. So we don't have the report done yet, but we're going to be able to show that DNR report and just, ideally be able to dump that right into Excel, and they should be able to just send it right off. That's the goal on that. And then we also have meter tests. And so you can capture information about when you have a new meter going in, when you have a meter removed. Let's say a customer wanted, they had requested a test because they had a high bill and they wanted to see if something was wrong with the meter. You can record all that information. Also, this is another customizable form. So, beyond the obvious stuff on the tests themselves, the low, medium, high flow rates, you would also be able to put in additional information as well. And so, and then one more thing on this is that these are just two of the types of forms and data collection that can happen here. We can extend these out. It is another one of those customizable things that you can just continue to add additional concepts. So if you have an idea of something else that you want to be able to add, let us know. And just really, we would want to talk through information that you want to collect, how you want to collect that, whether or not you want to do that in the field or it would be something you would just do in-house. All those things are part of the that discussion as to whether or how we end up actually set those things up. So the final thing I want to show real quick is an example of the cross connection report. So there's a new report out there just called cross connection list. You generate the list and it just dumps out all of the cross connection data that's in the system. And then from there, you can slice and dice using these slicers to be able to figure out information that you want, such as in this example, I've got, I want to see, well, what am I due to inspect in 2022? So I can go and click under next inspection year. I'm going to say 2022. And so it's giving me a list of everything that needs to happen there. And so beyond that, maybe I want to focus in on commercial inspections for next year. So I can also click on commercial and I get a shorter list now. I've kind of filtered that down even further. And so, the idea is that you can kind of, reduce this down and kind of get a better way of being able to figure out and do planning and strategizing around your cross connection information collection. And so once you've done that too, if you one of the things I wanted to point out too is that this first column here, location number, this ties back in to the OpenPoint system. And there's a few reports that do that already, but if you haven't seen it, it's great, the ability to go from an Excel report and then I can just click and I can drill down and go right back into OpenPoint. And this is a whole different record here that that shows that exact same information. So it's going in and, if I want to edit something because I want to update, maybe I did the inspection, so I update the last inspection date, which will then trigger the next inspection, of course, automatically. Then there's just a couple quick clicks and that you're in there and you're able to do that. So so that's all that I had for the cross connection information. Any questions on on water service locations? Any questions on this part of the system before we move on?
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
Mark from Sheboygan Falls.
Go ahead, Mark.
So is there any way, and maybe I missed it, but to actually tie in to our EMI software where we can get, a consumption report like for the year?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, and we've done some experiments with that as far on the electric side with AMI and getting some of the power usage information. So that could be basically aggregated together and give you summary reports. And so yeah, I think that we should be able to do that. We haven't done it with water at this point, but we really just need a way to tie in that water service location, which can be done by account number, which would probably make a lot of sense in this case. And if we can get to it, even if it's just a spreadsheet or if there's some kind of API we can utilize to go and grab that, then we can pull it right in here and have that information available to you. So when you go and look at it at a glance, you can be able to see it right from here. Or you can run reports and do things, across, a whole year or, for a quarter or however you wanted to do that for an individual service or even across your entire system. So yeah, I would love to look into that a little bit more and see if we can add that functionality.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Paul, Joel at Sun Prairie. This is something I think we've talked about. We'd definitely be interested in putting to use, and I'm glad that we were able to know that this is coming, in a few years from now. So it gives everybody a chance to start collecting this information and just be ready to go when the reporting is necessary.
Yeah, I think one of the key things is really understanding all the information that needs to be collected. And so, like I said, I was kind of surprised that there were some odd things that I just wasn't expecting them to ask for. And I don't know that those are part of the federal rule changes that are happening, or if it's something that the Wisconsin DNR decided they wanted to do. But either way, they want you to grab it. So we're going to make sure that the system can handle that, and that there's going to be a process of some kind, and that we'll know that the DNR is going to be okay with the end result. That's another big thing too. And I kind of see this as another one of those really good examples of where we can come together as a community and come up with a solution for something like this that benefits everybody. So not only does it work, but it also meets whatever the requirements are. And as we toss ideas back and forth too, maybe I've got these initial ideas on how we could do this, but maybe we can come up with even better ones that will work good for everybody. And maybe we'll come up with multiple approaches. Who knows? That's another possibility, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Okay, so I think I'm going to hand it off to Mindy, and she's going to be talking a little bit more about some of the map and cloud enablement functionality that is pretty new. Take it away, Mindy.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So with OpenPoint Map, we're focused on adding more cloud features to give you more access and editing capabilities when you're in the field or really when you're anywhere. So you should start seeing more and more of these features rolling out where more traditionally map-based functions are available on the website or on online maps. Paul talked earlier about the field activities and field inventories, which are both really good examples of these type of features that we expect to see going forward. So let me show you some additional capabilities that you can use today that are possible due to our map cloud enablement changes that we've been doing. So here we have an OpenPoint map, and I already have a job set up here. So I'm going to select that job. It is my cloud demo job. And we'll just select the features involved in this job. And what we have is a new service that's being installed. So we have a new wire that's being laid and a pole here. So if I select some of these features, I can look at the layout and see that the layout is set up for these features already. So the cool thing about the cloud enablement is that jobs are available on the website right away now when you're creating them on the map. So you don't even have to do a changes sync. These are going to be available right away. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the website button for this job so that I can see this job online. So here's our job, and you can see that the layout is already here in the website. In fact, this job is pretty much ready to go, and we're ready to construct it. So normally we would go to the map and do the construction for this, but now we can do constructed anywhere. So we can construct this directly from the website without having to go to the map and do it there. So anybody can come in here, even though it is a map job, and send it to constructed. So now this job is constructed and we'll be able to see the results of that on our map. So if I come in here and I start looking at these features again, I can see, because I have this job selected, that the layout are here, but in plant, we already have our constructed layout in our plant. So all these are already set up without even needing to do the synchronization. So that's really nice because it really allows anybody to do that constructed step, and it makes things just a little bit more streamlined. So let's say that we needed to make a change to this job. So we went out in the field, we found out that we needed like a lightning arrestor on this pole. So in order to add additional layout to this job, we actually need it not to be constructed. We need it to go back to the approved state. So we used to have to do this from the map, but again, that is no longer required. We can just roll back to approved here. And now we're in the correct state for adding our lightning arrestor. So another cool thing is normally we would go to the map and we could easily come in here and go to our layout and add and install our lightning arrestor from here. But we don't have to do that. Now we can also add that lightning arrestor directly from the website. So let's see what that process would be like if we wanted to do it directly from the website. In order to do that, we're going to go into the layout for this job. And we're going to look at this pole because this is the pole where we'd like to add the lightning arrestor. So now when you drill into your layout on the website, you'll see that the feature information is available at the bottom. So I can see the station number and the type of pole that this pole construction unit is going to be installed to. Also useful is this button here next to the feature global ID that will drill into the feature overview on the website itself. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button so that we can drill into the details of this feature and add our lightning arrestor. So when I click on that button, now this brings up the station overview for this particular pole. Some of you are familiar with this screen, but this is kind of a newer screen. So this is the OpenPoint's view of a feature, and it does have some of the attributes that you will have captured on your map. It also has our little bookmark that we can copy and paste into the map to get to that feature quickly on our map. And it lists the nearest features. So in this case, we have our overhead secondary line that's coming into our pole, and then the service overhead that's going out of the pole to our service. We also have our construction units available, and Paul was working with the construction units in here when he was doing his inventory map earlier, when he was linking directly from the field map. He got into this part of the system, so you've seen a little bit of that today. And then there's also the layout. If this was a feature that had an asset like transformer or a meter, then you would also see some of that asset information here. You'd be able to drill into the customers at a particular service location, or you would be able to drill into the transformer information directly from here. But what we want to do is add our lightning arrestor. So we're going to go into the layout for this particular feature. When we drill in here, we can see that we have our pole laid out, but we still need to add our lightning arrestor. So we're going to go ahead and use this plus button at the bottom to add our lightning arrestor. We can go ahead and search for that. And now we can just go ahead and press the save button. Notice that this particular layout is being added automatically to the cloud demo. So OpenPoint knows that we've been working with the cloud demo job most recently, and so it automatically selects that job by default. If you wanted to change it, you could by using the search function. You can also change any of the other attributes that you would normally be able to change from the map, like the count, and the district. Any of these features that you would have normally been able to change from the map, you can also change from the website. So we're going to go ahead and save this to add this layout. So now this is already part of the job, and we can go ahead and check into that from our map. So if we go and select our pole, we can see that our arrestor has already been added to our map, just as if we had done it directly from the map. So I'm going to go ahead and show this also on the website now. So we're going to go back into the website for the job, and we can see that from the job screen, you also have your additional arrestor. So that was a few steps. It's nice to be able to do that kind of thing from the web, but it is a few extra steps than what it would be like if you were just doing it on the map. Now, there are other functions that you can do and other changes you can make to your layout from the web that are even easier on the web than the map. So let's take a look at some of those options as well. So from our job screen, we can drill into our layout and say we need to make some modifications. So we could come in here and modify an existing layout to add additional length to our lines. We could also make quick changes, like say we found out that we didn't actually need this arrestor. We can easily just remove it from the layout directly from here. So those are some quick changes that we can make on the fly after this job has been completed on the map. Just some changes that we find out later without having to go into the map and drill into the details there. So there's one other brand new feature that we've added as part of these capabilities. Now that you can edit your layout from the map, you can, or from the web that normally you would just be doing from the map, you can add layout that don't have anything to do with features at all. So perhaps you have some non-plant, non-feature related labor costs, like if you have labor that's associated to meters, you can add that information now without creating any plant. The way to do that is not from the map, but from the web. So I can use this plus button, and I can add some costs here. So I'm going to go ahead and add some meter maintenance here. So I have a 1 hour meter maintenance block. And it has to be maintenance. So because I'm adding it here without a feature, it requires that this is added as maintenance. But I am adding this to a map job without a feature. I can increase the count and then go ahead and save that with this job. So again, this isn't going to add any extra plant to your map. It's just going to add that cost to this job without affecting your map at all. So I can easily add this later without having to go to the map and make changes there. So this wraps up our section on the new map web capabilities. Are there any questions on these changes?
Did you show rolling back from the web? If you did, I missed it.
Oh, did I not show that part? Well, I constructed it. I must have rolled it back.
I think you were getting caught.
Oh. I just wanted to make sure people
Yeah.
saw that, though.
Yeah, so we constructed it, and then in this drop down, we can roll back to approved
Okay, cool.
directly from
Because I know
that.
I'm going to use that feature.
Yeah, and then you can make your changes. You can add some labor that you weren't aware of here, right in here, or you can even make, increase the length of a line or whatever you need to do. Any quick changes that you need to do, just directly from here without having to mess with that map.
All right.
Andy. Wow.
All right. I think unless there was any questions on that. All right. I think we can switch over to you, Jill.
Okay, so it's 11:15. What do you think, Paul?
Let's see. Well, I would say maybe do a portion of what you were going to show, and I do want to, if you can do the touching upon the labor hours project and the civic integration update, that would be good.
Okay, how about if I take 10 minutes on this, and then I can probably do each of the others in 5 minutes?
That's
So
perfect.
if you want to, okay, if you want to watch the clock for me and give me a heads up when we're nearing the 10-minute mark here, that would be great. I'll cover a lot, but I've got a lot of content in these slides. So maybe I can just send this out to anyone who would like to see it or share it with the people that you're working with, so you can get the details and refresher after the fact. So I'll go ahead and get this started. So these are the quick takes on the OpenPoint web. Paul and Mindy added the ability to select a warehouse on an individual purchase order line item. So when you're setting up the purchase order, you still specify a default warehouse on the PO header, but then on each line item, like I've shown here, you can select a different warehouse if you want to, or just go with the default. So in the end, I just have a sample here of a purchase order that has one line item on it from a minor warehouse, 3 from a major, and then there's 1 for these 500 warning labels that isn't associated with any warehouse. I mean, you've been able to do that all along, but I just wanted to show a purchase order with quite a variety on there. So that should be real handy. Quick take number 2 is salvage accounts. This is in progress. Paul and Mindy have already added this salvage account number field to your assembly components, and we've filled it in. Every utility shares the same salvage account numbers. Here they are for electric, and here's for water. And these are the accounts that you use, of course, when you return material that was in service and you bring it back to your inventory stock. It needs to credit the salvage account. So that will prompt that then when you create an expected salvage transaction using that expected feature, in the future, those salvage account numbers associated with the assemblies for the material being returned will automatically have that account number on there. It's not working quite yet, but that will be something coming in the future. Quick take number 3, account number cross-referencing. This is also in progress. We're already using account number cross-referencing to translate the inventory transactions that are created in OpenPoint and get them into the utilities accounting software. And this import can work with different accounting software packages. Sometimes the accounting software will allow a direct import from Excel. Other times we're just summarizing the data so that it simplifies the information that the utility has to key in, like with QuickBooks, for example. We're also doing that with work order closing entries, getting that all packaged up and ready to go for the accounting software with the account numbers and the format needed there. Now, what has changed here is the user will now have the ability to add or change these account number cross references themselves. So like here's just a list. I've got some of the inventory journal accounts showing here and job close accounts. job close report accounts. And these are the accounts coming from OpenPoint. Well, if you click on one of these things, then you get this screen to pop up and it'll show, oh, for the inventory journal, if the account number is this, we want to convert it to this, which happens to be what this utility has in their general ledger. So it just enables you to be able to do some of this on the fly on your own. And then there's a report that goes along with that, a new report. Next thing that we are working on there is to be able to automate your monthly journal entries to record your material overhead on all the inventory issued, less returned throughout the month. So you don't have to do that manually. All right, quick take number 4, attachments. Mindy and Paul, I think, showed a lot of this, so I'll just go real quickly. I think Paul sent an email out. They increased the file size up to 20 megabytes. So hopefully we aren't going to run into any more limitations, but if we do, let us know. You can attach all these different types of files, including CAD files, your DWG and DXF files, like if you get them from a contractor that you're working with or something on a job. Emails are not yet attachable, but you can save or print them as a PDF and then attach that file. Once you've attached a document, it is stored in the cloud. So, I mean, technically, if you wanted to, you could get rid of it off of your own computer system, but that's up to you. The types of things, oh, I was just wondering if you guys could tell us. I know a couple of you are really pretty aggressive in what you're attaching to jobs, transformers, meters. Does anyone want to speak up and share how they're using this or how it's changing what you've done in the past?
You're getting pretty close to the time mark.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Purchase order attachments will be coming in the future. Advanced searches. Paul already showed that. I'll skip this one. You can schedule reports in advance. Many of you are doing that with the inventory values report. Any report can be scheduled in advance. You just click on this little download now button, and then you fill out these fields, hit schedule report, and you'll even get an email notification when it's ready for you. It's automatically saved for 30 days too. There's this new thing on defining alerts. So you can go out to the OpenPoint YouTube channel, just type in alert rule or notification channel. These 2 videos will pop up and give you some insight on that. Right now, there's limited use for OMS notifications, like Joel was talking about earlier. And then daily, Paul and Mindy get a report if your plant to CPR counts fall out of sync. And that's all happening through those automated alerts. Issuing material to work orders. I think I'll skip that one. Staking sheets. A few of you have helped me come up with this report design. Paul did start working on it, ran into a few snags on new things that he hasn't done before. So it's something he does want to get back to because this should be a very handy report, but like inserting the blank rows between different location numbers. It's going to be super handy if he can pull it off, but just a couple things have tripped him up so far. So hopefully you'll be able to get back to that in the not too distant future. And job tickets are being used by some different utilities. I guess I better skip that due to the time restraints here. I'll skip this one too, and on to standard labor hours. Okay, so within the last month or so, we have been working a lot with Hartford in setting up their property records. And part of this has required that we estimate how much time it takes to install each different type of assembly. And so we've been kind of, talking about that, looking at what some other utilities are doing. And as you all know, the standard labor hours are used also for estimating job costs and comparing estimated costs to actual, kind of how are we doing compared to the standards. And then to proportionally allocate your general costs like labor and truck costs to units being installed, removed, and transferred on the jobs. So here's just a simple example. If we're installing and removing poles and a pole and cross arms, these are the standard labor hours associated with those installations and removals, a total of 10. What percent of the total estimated standard hours are fall within each one, and then we'll use those percentages to divvy up the actual labor dollars. I know I've shown this to most of you over time, but it's just good to kind of get regrounded on how the system is allocating those general costs. So the current problem is that most of the standard labor hours that you're all using are lower than the actual hours that will be charged to the work order. At least that's what we've seen when we've been studying the data. So some people are using different methods to estimate their labor and truck costs rather than relying on the standards from OpenPoint and your job layout. And then if the proportions of the standard hours compared to the actuals are really out of whack on the job overall, obviously things are going to get booked differently than perhaps they should. And over the years, that could impact your ability to properly recover your costs. For example, electric depreciation rates in one account might target a recovery over 20 years versus another account might be over 40 years. So it does make quite a difference there where those dollars land. And each of the things that you're putting in could be retired at a different time too. Water depreciation rates vary even more from maybe 35 years to 85 years. And you might be recording a disproportionate share toward cost of removal or maintenance expense versus capitalizing it. So those are all things to consider and that you could talk with your auditors about as well, and the importance of getting that right. So what can be done about this? Well, we could provide data for you that would compare your standard hours with your actual labor hour allocations if you've got history in closing work orders with OpenPoint. So most of you have 1, 2, or even 3 years of history already out there. So we can also provide for you, if other utilities are willing to participate in this and share their information, we can share with you their standard hours and their actual allocations. So here's an example on 40-foot wood poles. The standard hours for utility number 1 is 6 hours. The way that their actual labor was distributed, it ended up being about 17 hours was landing in each pole on these different work orders closed throughout the last 2 years. Here's another utility. Their standard is 8 hours, and the actual allocation is between 13 and 30 hours on these different work orders. Now, each utility, might have some differences. Like I happen to know utility number 2 doesn't have as many units in account 364 as utility number 1 does. So obviously it's natural that more hours are going to hit the pole. But we can provide that type of information for you and try to find utilities that are comparable to you. And then the yellow line here is Hartford, and they took all that data and studied it. And Mike Tim used his experience as well, and just his knowledge of construction. And this is not just construction, but all the types of labor that ultimately is charged to a job. And he came up with this 18-hour estimate that Hartford is going to be using. So anybody that's got estimates out there, standards of 3 to 10 hours, I think they're the proof is in the pudding here that is pretty low. And then you can use Excel to simplify making your updates to your standard labor hours. So it's not like you'd have to go through every assembly in OpenPoint and make those changes there. We can give you an Excel template showing what your hours are now, give you some of this information on the side that you can refer to. And then in that Excel template, you can key in what you'd like your standard hours to be updated to, and Paul can import those for you. And then, so in order to really pull this off, one of the things that I'd like to do is right now we have a lot of variety out there. When you look at how you each, like this is just 7 different utilities and what you each call 40-foot poles in account 364. Some of these were just converted from old data over. And so I'd love to try to make these consistent. And so if it's okay with everybody, I'll go ahead and send out a conversion list for you and show what your old description was and what the new one could be. And this is just accounts. It's not your assembly codes and definitions, just accounts. And the other thing we'd like to do is add a major unit type description. So like poles distribution would apply whether it's a 40-foot pole account, a 45, a 50, whatever, it's still a pole distribution. And that will just give us some additional reporting capabilities that are a little more difficult right now to be able to pull all the data in on all your poles, for example, or create a graph of all the pole counts by age. Things of that sort. So I think these will be nice improvements going forward. And then the last thing is on the civic integration. Most of you probably know that WPPI members, many of them were using Dynamic Solomon. That software is being phased out. And so they developed a committee to look for different software. Committee recommended Civic. And so many of the WPPI members are going to be migrating to Civic. So they're very interested in working with us on an integration with OpenPoint Web. Both parties have agreed that there would be at least a phase 1 integration provided to the users at no cost. That's an Excel import-export based integration. And Two Rivers and New Holstein, I wanted to mention, have been using Civic Cassell for years. Two Rivers has worked with us to help develop an integration already with the inventory journal entries that are coming out of OpenPoint, going over to Civic through my Excel. And then the same goes for the job, the work order closing entries. And so those are already flowing in through that import capability. Cedarburg was the first WPPI member who's going to be switching from Dynamic Solomon to Civic. So they've been working with us during the conversion to make sure that things are getting set up in a way that an integration will continue to be possible. And part of the account number cross-referencing that I talked about a little bit ago, that's part of the key here to making this work. And we've already updated those account numbers for Cedarburg. Well, I've got them in Excel. They're ready to be imported into OpenPoint so that they can continue to get information over to Civic. And then next up will be to figure out how to get work order costs out of Civic and into Excel for import into OpenPoint to avoid duplication of effort in getting those costs over. And I think the utilities that are doing that on a regular basis are finding that their operations people really appreciate being able to bring up a job and see, who has charged their time to that job, for example, or what accounts payable invoices have already been received and recorded on that job. So it's a nice way to avoid that duplication as well. So that's it. Any questions? I know I went